Hello and welcome to Byjus Exam Prep IAS. As part of a comprehensive news analysis, today we'll be discussing 5 important topics out of the Hindu newspaper Delhi edition. Before we begin, as always, we're available on Telegram, so you can download the app via the QR code given here or the link in the description below. Before we go into the topic concerned, an important announcement that on this Sunday we have our PETS examination, which is the geography examination sectional test. And if you are at any of our offline centers, you can go there and give the exam at 9 a.m. and it will also be available online, both Hindi and English, after 9 a.m. on Sunday. With this, let's start our analysis for today. And the first is a very important committee which has been established to check MGNREGA's efficacy. So before we go into the nitty-gritty of the topic itself, you need to understand one thing very clearly. When we talk about the Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guarantee Act or scheme, it is one of the most important backbones of a social security system, as it gives 100 days of unskilled work for sure to a rural household. So what is in question right now under this committee which has been established recently is the fact that is it working efficiently or not. So before we again go into the details, very simply, the Amarjit Sinha committee has now been established to check how is the resources being utilized, is the resources being utilized in the best way possible, and more than that, why is there still disparity. So the most important question which this committee is going to pick up is that why is that certain states such as Bihar, which need the work, are not getting the work. On the other hand, Kerala, which is well off than Bihar, is able to generate assets through the same scheme. So there is no asset generation in Bihar. However, it is doing with the same scheme asset generation in Kerala. So therefore, this is a very important question. There are a lot of criticism over the quality of assets, the way it has been created, how it only creates a loop of unskilled work. But MGNREGA is important because of the fact that it becomes a way of coming out of poverty. It's a poverty alleviation tool, and in the COVID-19 and in the post-pandemic world itself, it emerged as a very important concept. Now, as I said, the point here is why is that MGNREGA is technically not impacting each and every state in the right way, and this is the question which is in front of this committee. So the central government has constituted a committee to review the implementation of the scheme itself, especially to assess its efficacy, its efficiency, its effectiveness as a poverty alleviation tool. The committee, which is now being headed by former Rural Development Secretary Amarjit Sinha, had his first meeting on Monday, and now he will take 3 months to submit his suggestions with regards to how to make MGNREGA better. Now, the point is that it is something which was passed in 2005 as an act, the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act, and the scheme guarantees 100 days of unskilled work per year for every rural household that wants it. And as of right now, 15.51 crore active workers are enrolled in the scheme. However, the Sinha committee is now going to understand, and very important for the prelims examination itself, is going to understand how various factors are working behind the scheme. Specifically, the expenditure trend and the interstate variations, which is that how much variation is happening within the same level of resources, the same level of allocation, and along with that the composition of work. And it will also suggest how to focus on the structure, the governance structure, and if there is a need to change the structure itself. And the need for this committee comes from the fact that Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, these are high poverty level states, haven't been able to utilize the scheme optimally. So it's about optimization. The scheme has been working for now close to 20 years, but the point of the matter is how is it getting optimized? Now this is something very important because there has been too much variation in the way it has been applied. So Bihar, for example, despite its level of poverty, does not generate enough work to make a concrete difference. On the other hand, we have Kerala, which is economically better but has been able to utilize the assets better. So the present committee is trying to check the cost of providing work and why has it also shot since its inception in 2005 itself. So it will look at the argument that if the cost of providing work itself is more, then what is the point of the scheme itself? And there has been a very long standing critique of MGNREGA, which is that it does not create tangible asset creation. And the committee is going to check if this can be changed, which is the composition of work, and also weigh in should we focus on community based assets or individual works, which is that if we are only digging up a hole and then again filling it up and then digging up a hole, community based asset, it makes no sense. So when we talk about MGNREGA and this scheme itself and generally this committee, first very important for prelims is Amarjit Sinha, which is the Sinha committee. MGNREGA has been working the way it should be. However, there are gaps and there are optimizations which can happen. Third, the fact of the matter here is that why is that same level of resources are not creating asset in a state where there should be asset creation. So Bihar, UP should be utilizing the potential of MGNREGA better. However, it is Kerala which is using it better. So this committee and its recommendation in the next 3 months is going to be extremely important to understand how MGNREGA has a differential impact, how it is adding to regional inequality, and does regional governance matter, state governance matter in how MGNREGA is being applied. So this is a developing story. Let's see how and where it goes. But the basic point of the matter here is that MGNREGA is a very important concept. The scheme itself is working the way it should. However, there is a lot of optimization which can happen, and the efficacy and Sinha committee has now become that important body which is going to tell us how to make it more efficient. We'll see how this whole concept develops further, but as of right now, for the prelims examination, Sinha committee, efficacy of the MGNREGA scheme. With this, let's look at the second important topic, which is a major breakthrough, and this is why we say that Russia has been an important partner and still remains an important part in Indian foreign policy, because the Kudankulam plant, which has been developed by Rosatom itself, Russia itself, now Russia is ready to offer us a new technology which it did not give us previously. And this is a very important moment. So let's try to understand the basic point. When Rosatom gave us this plant, it gave us the fuel for it also. And the fuel as of right now which they give only survives for 18 months. But now they are ready to give us a fuel which can work for 24 months, 2 years. And that could be a major breakthrough and a game changer when it comes to our energy security, because now there can be better efficiency and better output out of the same nuclear reactor. Therefore, the Russia state-owned nuclear energy corporation, Rosatom, has offered a major and much more advanced fuel option to India's largest nuclear power station, which will allow the reactor to run for an extended 2-year cycle without stopping for a fresh load of fuel. And this is a very important point, because the TVEL fuel company as of right now gives us, for the VVER2 reactors we have 1000 megawatt capacity, the TVS2M fuel, and this is what has been used in the Kudankulam nuclear power project itself. And this fuel has a fuel cycle of 18 months, which means that every 18 months we have to stop the reactor and change the fuel. And now TVEL is ready to offer a more advanced technology fuel, the ATF, and this will give us whopping 24 months fuel cycle. Therefore, it will be more efficient, additional power generation can be done, and it will prolong the operation of every reactor. Therefore, sizable saving in the foreign exchange needed to buy the fresh fuel assembly from Russia. Now, this is why we say that Russia is a backbone of our foreign policy, because at the end of the day, no other country is ready to offer us this technology or this fuel itself. So this is a very significant story. That is why we're discussing it here, which is that now we have a new type of fuel which we can get from Russia, which can provide us 24 months rather than 18 months of output, and the fuel cycle has been increased, which gives us more energy security also. So this is a very interesting story in the context of India's abstaining of the vote in the UN, India's support to Russia generally. This now becomes a very significant and an interesting part of our relationship. That Rosatom, at the same point of time when Russia-Ukraine is happening, India has shown very publicly support to Russia. They are offering us a fuel which they never offered to us previously, a 24-month fuel cycle fuel, which is going to be very, very significant for our energy generation. So with this, let's look at the third important topic we have to discuss today, which is related to the GST regime and cooperative and competitive federalism. As we know, because of the GST regime coming through, there was a loss which all states would incur in their revenue collection. Therefore, under the GST regime itself, there was a provision that there would be a GST compensatory fund through which the center would transfer money to the states in order to compensate in their loss in the state GDP and generally taxation. But we also know that there's a divisibility pool of taxes out of which the center and the state divide the money. However, there has been a new development with regards to all states, saying that there is a new tendency within the central government, which is not something good. So let's try to understand it again in the nutshell, then go into the details. The concept is that all states are pointing out the center is progressively increasing the share of surcharges and cesses within the GST regime, and under the GST regime itself, cess and surcharge is not part of the divisibility pool of taxes, but is technically center's income rather than center and state income. And what they're arguing is that by increasing the cess and surcharges and not increasing the tax, the states are at a loss because center is able to compensate for whatever loss and whatever the shock of the COVID-19 pandemic may be, but they are compensating it via surcharges and cesses, which is only their income. So there's a new outcry which is saying that remove the cesses and surcharges and rather increase the GST so that the GST divisibility pool becomes bigger, out of which states can also get some money. And they are also arguing that the GST compensatory fund or the GST compensatory cess, the period was 5 years. It should be increased because of the 2 years of the pandemic itself. So there are two basic concepts which are embedded within it. First, the concept of cess and surcharge, how the center is bypassing the divisibility pool by using the cess and surcharge. And second, the compensatory regime to be extended more than 5 years. Therefore, several states have urged the center to rein, which is to leash in its reliance on raising revenues through cesses and surcharges, which reduce their share in the divisibility pool of the taxes, which is the basic concept that because you are using cess and surcharge to add to the taxes, it does not become part of the divisibility pool. They also sought for greater fiscal support to help revive their economy and reiterate demands for the extension of the goods and services tax compensatory period from 5 years. So what is this concept? Let's try to understand what is this compensation. The GST became applicable on 1st July 2017 under the 101st Constitutional Amendment Act of 2016, and the point was that the center had promised compensation to the states for any shortfall in tax revenue due to GST implementation for a period of 5 years. This is the period which they're asking to increase. States are guaranteed compensation for any revenue shortfall below 14% growth with baseline 2015-16 for the first 5 years ending in 2022, which they want to increase. GST compensation is paid out of a compensatory cess every 2 months by the center to the states. And there's again a lot of conflict with regards to this money not being pushed every 2 months, but is pooled up together and given to the states. And as of right now, the context of this whole article itself is 17,000 crore rupees being pushed to the states with regards to this compensatory cess. But Tamil Nadu and other important states have pointed out that the share of cess and surcharge has grown from 10.4% of the gross tax revenue in 2011-12 to 26% in 2021-22, which means that this 10% increase is something which only the center gets. There is no state share within this surcharge and cess, and they are saying that we need to get it and we should get it because at the end of the day we are also part of the larger federal structure, and the cess and surcharge technically distort the GST regime. GST regime was more about the CGST, IGST and SGST, but the surcharges and cess are direct revenue for the center, which is a problem because the states are already struggling with their GDPs and generally their production. So what they're arguing is that the states are losing out on a legitimate share of revenue collected by the center, but because it is surcharge and cess, it is technically not part of the larger divisibility pool itself. And this is a very interesting concept which has been brewing up. So the three basic concepts embedded within it, which is the concept of the cess and surcharge not part of divisibility pool. Second, the compensatory period should be increased by 5 years. And third, the GST regime creates losses for the states. For the first 5 years, there was a promise, but now it is becoming more and more desperate, and a lot of states are pointing out that this is not the way we can go forward within the GST regime itself. Before we move to the next topic, let's try to summarize what we've done till this point. We've tried to understand how there's a new committee, Sinha committee, to check the concept of the efficacy of MGNREGA, and second, we tried to understand that how Russia, in the context of the Russia-Ukraine crisis, has been able to and is ready to give us an advanced fuel which has a longer fuel cycle. And this topic tells you how the GST regime itself is seeing a lot of strain and conflict within it, and basically the compensatory period and the concept of cess and surcharge both have now come into question, and this is distorting the GST regime itself. With this, let's try to understand the fourth topic, which is related to visas and UK work permits. And India has now become the biggest share of UK work visas as per a report. So Indian nationals now receive 39% of all total work related visas granted by the United Kingdom for the year ending September 2022. Basically till September 2022, 39% of all work related visas were Indian, which is interesting with regards to what is happening generally. Rishi Sunak coming through, and the basic point of the matter is, out of the total 1,45,258 work related visas issued by the UK government, 56,000 were received by Indians, which is a 90% jump in comparison to the pre-pandemic figure of 29,000 in 2019. Firstly, this is both part of the larger change of orientation of the UK government and generally the British having a new understanding of the relationship with India, but also it's a recovery indicator with regards to the pandemic. That is why we are doing it, because an indicator of recovery, that now people are again ready to go to abroad, and because so many visas are being issued, have been issued, is also the way that the European sector is again opening up in that sense. So apart from India, Philippines, Nigeria, United States were amongst the top visa seeking nations, and the sharp demand rise is explained by the post-pandemic recovery and generally how the world economy is working at this point of time, and generally also how the British is changing its orientation towards India. The free trade agreement coming through means there's a little bit of shift and pivot towards India, which is equally interesting. Indians also featured in the top 3 nationalities that were granted skilled workers visas from the UK. The other 2 nations would be the United States and South Africa. Indians received 33% of the skilled workers visa, while the Americans 6%, South Africans 4%. India also came on top for the skilled workers health and care visas, accounting for 36%. Nigerians and Zimbabweans were also amongst the top recipients of this category of visa. So technically don't have to learn this data. What is more important is that post-pandemic recovery, there are basic indicators, and this is one of the indicators, that now there's again immigration and emigration both in Europe and in India itself. So people are ready to go out to the US and the UK, and the UK and the European sectors again opening up after its major shock because of the pandemic. But at the end of the day, as of right now, an important indicator of post-pandemic recovery. With this, let's look at the last topic, which is related to the Vande Bharat trains, and a very important moment in railway history, because now the railway ministry is contemplating exporting the Vande Bharat train and the carriages itself. So the Ministry of Railway is readying a roadmap to start exporting indigenously manufactured Vande Bharat trains by 2025-26, and the ministry also wants to increase the production and introduce a new version of sleeper coaches. As of right now, the Vande Bharat Express is a chair car. Now they want to introduce in the same design and same specifications sleeper trains. But what is more interesting is that they are saying that they are going to test Vande Bharat on Indian tracks, and once they have the requisite mileage, they will push for exports. They will at the same point of time increase the production. But they're also saying that they are going to talk about tilting trains, and this is a concept which is used in France quite a lot, which is that these type of trains, because they are very aerodynamic, they have to slow down on curves, but now without actually affecting the floor itself. There's an understanding that the train could tilt in order to change its center of gravity and not decrease its speed on tilts in Indian railways itself. So the ecosystem to export these trains will be created in the next 2 to 3 years. We are on track to manufacture 475 Vande Bharat trains in the next 3 years. Once they are successfully run on the track, we will have proof of technology. The railways expect to cumulatively run 75 new Vande Bharat trains, close to 10 to 12 lakh kilometers, before they start to pursue the export market. India is also building up a standard gauge track in Rajasthan, because technically outside India it is standard gauge, within India it is broad gauge. So in Rajasthan, by January of 2024 we will have these tracks ready, and then the Vande Bharat would then be tested on these tracks for the export market itself. The sleeper version will be ready by the first quarter of 2024 and will be manufactured by the Integral Coach Factory in Chennai. Further, the railway, in association with global firms, is also developing a tilting train which could run on curved tracks without slowing down by 2025-26. At least 100 of the 400 Vande Bharat trains would be of this specification of tilting on tracks. Now, this is a very encouraging, very exciting news with regards to Vande Bharat. It is a very proud moment for India that we are now also contemplating for exporting trains, and the fact that we are testing standard gauge tracks in India, the fact that Vande Bharat is the the new image of India as a railway giant, and the fact that railways is taking this very, very seriously because they're building the capacity in a very systematic way is a very encouraging news in that regard. And I think on this note, we can summarize everything what we've done today, which is that we tried to understand why there is a need to make the Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Act better. Efficacy, efficiency, effectiveness needs to be better. That was the first topic we did. Second, we tried to understand how Russia has now given us access to a 24-month fuel cycle, nuclear fuel, and thereafter we tried to understand how the surcharge and cesses are now becoming a problem, because this enter-in-state relationship, there is a point which they are trying to prove that somehow the divisibility pool is shrinking, cess and surcharges are increasing, which is distorting the GST regime itself. Thereafter we tried to understand the concept of visas and the post-pandemic recovery, how now air travel and immigration out of India and immigration into UK is now coming to its normalcy, but there is a major surge in that regard. And this topic is about railways contemplating exporting the Vande Bharat train itself, which is good news for us in the long run. With this, let's look at the mains question. First question, the use of surcharges to raise revenue distort the GST regime. Elucidate. 150 words, 10 marks. Discuss the role of advanced nuclear fuel technology in India's energy security. So both are related to very interesting aspects. This, how GST regime is distorted, and second, how the 24-month cycle can help us in making sure that we can generate more energy within the same fuel itself and save on our forex reserve itself. With this, I would like to end the session. Thank you so much for your patience. I will see you in the next video. Take care.